Good afternoon. Hope you're all doing very well, and welcome to Tea Time with me. Right, if you hear some loud noise in the background, hopefully my window can keep it out, but apparently the local lawnmower man decided that it's party time today. Hopefully it isn't too loud. It seems like it's been quiet for a bit. But we're doing this because it's on schedule. Hey Keziah, hey Emir, hey Mihoels, hey Tristan Debart, and Sharo, and Jelano, and Gazo. I hope you're all doing very well. So just before the stream started, Mihoels made this incredible GIF emoji for us all to enjoy. Unfortunately, we have no emote space on YouTube, and I don't believe they take GIFs at all. But I hope you will enjoy this on Discord, which we got. It's very nice. The grayness is just because that's how Firefox interprets the transparency for some reason. Yes, so we have a laugh GIF emote now on Discord. I think you need to have Nitro to be able to use GIFs, but it's there. It's also pinned, so you can favorite it and use it as a GIF on its own. Yeah, I think this is incredible. Right, so remember that if there's anything you would like to talk about, like any question Final Fantasy XIV primarily, not necessarily exclusively, that you would like to talk about, this is the perfect stream to do that. What I have on the schedule is we actually have a whole bunch of clips. So what I've done is we have a clip from Gazel, and we have a clip from Sharo, and we have a clip from Fila. Fila Alif. And we also have a bunch more clips. I've noted the links down so that I don't miss them. But we will do one of each so that we switch things up. It isn't tea time featuring only one person. That also resolves the issue if there's, one person that drops 20 videos and someone else puts one. Then we, spread the love so everyone gets some advice. Ymir says, what do I do if I drift the Machinist rotation? The best you can do is try to recover. My advice would be make sure that you're using your tools on cooldown. It becomes really, really complicated to answer whether there is any value to, postponing your tools to line them up for raid buffs. Because to do that, if you drift them, then the only way to fix it in regards to your raid buff timing, if you're going to focus on that, is to skip an entire use, right? So, if you delay drill by 1 GCD, then you would necessarily have to, skip, postpone drill for an additional 7 GCDs to fix it again, and then use it exactly at the correct time, and good luck on that during a boss fight, right? It's probably not going to go well. But the problem with that is that if you're postponing your drill to do that, you're losing 1 drill cast, so 600 potency, right? For the possibility of getting raid buffs on your remaining, drills every 2 minutes, so 1 in 6 drills will get raid buffs, right? So if there's 2 minutes left of the fight, so there's 1 burst window left, then you're going to get raid buffs on 1 drill by sacrificing 1 drill elsewhere. If there's 4 minutes left, you might get 2 buffed drills. If there's 6 minutes left, you might get 3. But for it to be worth it, because remember, to fix this in the first place, you would need to sacrifice an entire use of drill in the first place, right? And raid buffs, like, if you have, like, the god combination, like, you have actually a dancer in your, like, your extra DPS, your DPS 4 is a dancer, and they're partnering with you, and you have a dragoon who's dragon siding you, and you have, like, a red mage using Embolden, which buffs you, and you have an Astrologian who's really, like, prioritizing throwing cards on you, and you have a scholar using chain strategy. Like, you're literally doing everything to maximize your damage in raid buffs. It's still probably not going to be more than 50% more damage during raid buffs. And if it's not 50%, so let's say hypothetically that you got 50% more damage during raid buffs on average, which is pretty high, but it isn't completely impossible for some jobs, especially if they have personal cooldowns. But if you actually got a 50% damage boost during raid buffs, then you would still need 2 2-minute bursts for it to be worth it to sacrifice that one drill to realign your cooldowns, right? You would need 4 minutes to fix it, and then you're sacrificing the drill under the assumption that for the next 4 minutes you're going to play perfectly, because if you don't, then it was all for nothing, right? So that is a really long way of saying, if your cooldowns drift, and this applies to Machinist and any job really, if your cooldowns drift out of raid buffs, in most situations, unless it only costs you like 1 or 2 GCDs of extra delay to fix it, if not that, then it's better to use the cooldown now. Like, it is better to use, like, you use your cooldowns in the order that the opener recommends, because you're sacrificing that time immediately, and for some cooldowns, it's just a matter of priority. Like, you have to use all these 15 things anyway. The only question is which order they go in, and some of them get more value out of being postponed. Mainly the big damage ones, right? But if they start drifting over the course of the fight, they might drift in one direction so that they come out too early, then you can delay them by 1 or 2 GCDs maybe, and they'll land in raid buffs again. But if they fall on the other side, so like they're actually coming out too late, which is usually what happens if like you miss the timing on drill, for example, then the only way to fix it is to skip a cast of drill, which will put it on this side. Like, it will give you the freedom to put it on this side instead, so like before your raid buffs, which allows you to put it in raid buffs. But it comes at a huge cost. And this applies to all jobs. In most cases, once the opener's over, it's often better to simply use your cooldowns. Let's see. Also, hey Lemon, I hope you're doing well. And Gazel says, when I drift my chain stratagem, I would pray that the boss has a mechanic that leaves the field soon. Oh yeah, so that you can have it sit on cooldown for a bit. Also, hey Fila. That's alright. I will probably call you Fila, since I think that's what your name is everywhere now, right? Gazel says, sometimes when a boss has a trash phase lined up on the 2-minute burst, everyone is using the raid buffs, and I don't know what to do with my chain debuff. If everyone's using their raid buffs anyway, then the best I can suggest to you is use Chain Stratagem on the mob that has the most HP. If there's one of the mobs in the trash phase that is like clearly bigger than the other ones and are like probably a little chunkier, can take a few more hits, then Chain Stratagem on that one is more likely to make all of the mobs drop together. If they're all identical, like for example in P12N, where there's the 4 ads, sometimes one of the mobs somehow gets hit a bit less. If you can get Chain Stratagem on the one that is like falling behind and taking damage, you can sometimes like fix the imbalance with your singular cooldown. But it's difficult. I can see why it would be a problem, because the thing is, if you delay your Chain Stratagem until when the boss comes back, yeah, your Chain Stratagem will land where everyone benefits more because the boss is going to be alive for the full duration of Chain Stratagem. On the other hand, if everyone just used all of their 2-minute burst cooldowns, then it's like that Chain Stratagem is going to be buffing, you know, like Heated Clean Shot, maybe a non-inner release boosted Fell Cleave, the Paladin having a random Divine Might Holy Spirit, the Dark Knight might go, well, I have some MP to spare, I could use Edge of Shadow now, because there's a buff. Like, some of the jobs might go, well, I have something, and try to make use of your Chain Stratagem. But, the problem is that if there's going to be another burst later, then your Chain Stratagem will be, you know, off for that one as well. So it might be better to get like a fraction of value out of it when everyone is using the raid buffs, rather than getting the value afterwards. However, there is no correct answer to this, in my opinion. It depends on the group, it depends on the fight. So the best you can do is like gauge it on the fly. And go, well, I don't think Chain Stratagem is going to do anything here. Like, if you're doing casual content or are in an uncoordinated group that aren't using their cooldowns in bursts very well, then it is almost certainly better for you to like use Chain Stratagem after the ad phase, simply because there's almost certainly someone in the group who also is doing that. Like, someone else who's also going, well, everyone else is bursting, I could save mine to burst the boss later. So, that's an interesting aspect of doing less coordinated content. And what I mean by less coordinated content is, in a raid, in a static, or even in like savage groups where all the players are just really good, you can expect the cooldowns to come out on time. You can expect the 2-minute burst to come out on time, all these things. But if you're playing most non-savage, non-extreme, non-ultimate content, a lot of players are going to be playing very randomly. Some Gunbreakers use No Mercy before the pull, and then pull with Rough Divide, as a random example. Some Paladins will open with Fight or Flight and Requiesce it. Some Black Mages are going to start with Ice Phase, regardless of the fight. Some Machinists are not going to follow some specific opener. They just go reassemble, drill, reassemble, air anchor, and then chainsaw, and then see what they do from there. Like, and this applies to all jobs. There's like a lot of ways to go about things, and as we talked a lot about earlier on Discord, if the boss is dying, then there's no problem. Like, then we're still winning. And the only thing you can do different is you can be more correct. And in a casual group, a less coordinated group, being flexible with your buttons, if your job has the capacity to do that, is a lot more useful than sticking to the strategy. Yeah, Umi is using the strategy that I recommend in my Machinist guide. There are 2 common openers for Machinist. The alternative rotation that is not in my Machinist guide is the Delayed Tools opener. That one favors it gets a slightly bigger damage output in the burst, like in the opener especially, but that is completely irrelevant if you're not in a coordinated group. While the standard opener that I recommend gets air anchor out like 10 seconds earlier, which is more likely to be helpful if you can't depend on raid buffs anyway. Like, who knows, if in an uncoordinated group, there's a bigger chance that people are going to use their raid buffs on 0 seconds instead of 7, and then air anchor first doesn't actually matter. Like, it's going to get the full value anyway. So it is very complicated. The thing is, Gassel, that learning these things, I would say, makes you a better player than internalizing like a fixed strategy. I must use change stratagem exactly on cooldown because I should. If you can be like flexible and think about the situation, that makes you a much better player than someone who can blindly follow a set rotation without thinking about what is actually in front of them, right? And hey Licky, I hope you're doing well. And hey Arya, I hope you're doing well. Lemon says, I've had a rough week. Oh, well, I'm glad to see that I can brighten it a little bit with tea time. But yeah, both of those questions are very good in terms of like cooldown management. If your cooldowns drift, which is usually because you forgot to use them, for example, like either you forgot to use them or there was nothing to use them on, the best you can do in most situations is to ignore that and use them on cooldown anyway, because you will lose a cast of the ability to fix the drift. If, on the other hand, somehow your rotation is going too fast and you're getting ahead of your group, the best you can do to fix that is to postpone a cooldown if you can. Maybe find some filler stuff. Some jobs might be able to do that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but some jobs are capable of going too fast. Some examples include Samurai. If you're doing the looping rotation and you forget to do the filler, you're going to get ahead, right? And that is going to mess with your Midare Setsugeka during raid buffs. Summoner is perfectly capable of getting ahead, because the thing is, Summoner only needs to stay in each summon for like 5 seconds, or 7.5 if you include the GCD of summoning it in the first place. Which means that if you want to, you can actually rush through all 3 in less than half a minute. Which allows the summoner to actually fix it if they fall behind, without just skipping it all and summoning Bahamut or Phoenix. But it also means that if you miscalculate it, you might be sitting awkwardly and just going, I mean, I have ruined 3, which is terrible. But that is not as bad as what you could get, right? But the best you can do if you fall behind, or rather, if you mess up your rotation such that you miss a cooldown, is to just use it on cooldown anyway. A really good example, one of the best examples of this is that Expiation and Circle of Scorn you're supposed to use on cooldown, but right in the opener you delay them until after fight or flight. The reason for this is that while that technically costs you a fourth of an Expiation and a Circle of Scorn on average, and you're gaining a fourth of damage, making it like 3 essentially, this delay means that every second Circle of Scorn and Expiation you do after that will get 25% damage, and that is ignoring raid buffs. Like, that is just what you're getting yourself. But if for some reason these 2 cooldowns drop outside of fight or flight, like completely out because of something happening, it's really unlikely, but it can happen, it is typically recommended to click them on cooldown anyway, because the calculation of whether it is or isn't worth it is too difficult to take in the moment. It is too much to think about in the moment. Like, oh, Expiation has a 20-second cooldown right now. Rather, I will need to delay my Expiation by 20 seconds to fit it in fight or flight. That is like the ultimate oof, because that would suggest that you missed it by like 1 second. then you're missing 2/3 of an expiation. And that means that you need to get expiation within fight or flight 3 times to get that one refunded. Or maybe 2 if you have raid buffs that align as well, but then that is 2 or 4 minutes in. So like it's a lot of planning, so generally the best you can do is just go, nah, forget that, and just click it on cooldown. If you watch me playing Paladin, what you're going to see is I will usually wait anyway, because this one goes both ways. On one hand, it is better to just click it on cooldown and not think about it. On the other hand, the loss of not clicking it on cooldown and aligning it with fight or flight is relatively small, and the potential gain is pretty big if you guessed right. And I just like using them together, right? If I was doing it in Savage, the possibility of them falling out and drifting out is smaller because it's a lot more coordinated. But if they did, the best you can typically do is click on cooldown. Avoid the drift by ignoring it. Hey Felix, I hope you're doing well. Ymia says, I can't play most jobs because I can't remember the raid buffs. Well, it's pretty simple. If you play a job like Paladin and using fight or flight for yourself, well, as a summoner you're using Searing Light for yourself. It just so happens that everyone else is also here. Reaper uses Arcane Circle almost immediately when you pull, mainly because of themselves, because they need that buff to be there so that they can use Enshroud quickly. They don't actually care about the damage buff in the opener, but everyone here just happens to be there to benefit. Dragoon is using Battle Litany for themselves, that's why they're using it after they put up their own damage buff. But uses Battle Voice for themselves, that's why it usually comes out after they put up their dots, they're ready to burst. Dancer is using Technical Finish and then Devilment, mainly for themselves, because they themselves also benefit more from having them overlap perfectly. But their dance partner also benefits. Like, most of these jobs that have raid buffs, they're mainly using them for themselves. It's just convenient that everyone else is also here to make use of them, right? So it may help to think of it like that. When is it the most convenient for you to use your raid buff? Oh, then you use it there. Incidentally, most optimized openers are planned around you doing that. Gassel says, remember, at some point Bard could not hear their own song. That is true, Battle Voice used to not actually benefit the Bard. Well, you're giving a rousing speech to everyone else, not yourself. But yeah, it's a little complicated, I understand. Now, let me just see here. So we have 3 videos. The first one is Gazel, who was playing Astrologian, I believe in the Ether Font. The second one is Sharo playing Warrior in the Ether Font. And the third one is Fila playing White Mage in the Ether Font. And thank you, Gazel. It is one that Aria made. Is it breaking on me? Oh. Right, so I believe Gazel recorded it without sound. And both Sharo and Fila recorded with sound. So for Gazel, I'm just going to leave the Cradle of Hope on in the background. And then when we get to the other ones, we can turn the sound off of the game so that it's not like a cacophony of sound. Ether Font stream. Yeah. Yeah, well, that happens. If you, like, you can almost date exactly when some of my videos have been made in the past, like tank guides or healer guides, depending on what the level 90 dungeon is. because it's almost certainly one of those that is in the expert roulette. Nick Van Dam says, so is Dragoon now the easiest melee to play, or is still Reaper and Samurai? Dragoon is actually considered one of the harder melee DPS because of its weaving. I would recommend, if you want an easy melee DPS, Reaper is by far the easiest. And the reason for this is that playing Reaper, naturally, you play basically what is considered almost optimal intuitively, like just doing your rotation. The difficult part is when to use Enshroud, and if you want to learn the double Enshroud. But in comparison, Samurai is very easy to pick up, and at a glance it seems very easy. The problem is that if you go on and go, I want to master this, then Reaper, it has its own raid buff, so you just align with that. Samurai does not have a raid buff, and Samurai, it's complicated to align your burst and Midare Setsugeka to raid buffs. So it means that picking up the job and just, freestyling the rotation is very, very easy and approachable. But mastering the job is an extreme uphill climb in comparison to Reaper. Dragoon is easier than Samurai in the way that your burst naturally lines up because you have so many buffs that you're applying, including a raid buff. But it is significantly harder in the way that you need to use all of your buffs in a specific way. So if you want the easiest melee DPS, I would recommend Reaper. If you don't care too much about optimizing raid buff alignment and stuff like that, then Samurai is great too. I hope that answers it. And don't worry about it, Fila. I can mute it if it was a problem with the sound. We'll take it when we get there. Right, so Gazel was playing Astrologian. Let me just see, they left me some specific pointers. Any feedback? Okay. We'll see what we can do. Oh, and it is edited to speed through the nothing parts. We have aspected benefit there, and also I've set the quality as high as I can. No, it is a little blurry, but that is as it is. Yeah, early aspected benefit, that is good, and you have your card, that is good. And Licky says Dragoon will be the easiest in 7.0, most likely. We don't know, it might not. It has a pretty steep competition with Reaper. Looks like there was some dot application, that is good. There's a reapplication of aspected benefit, that works. You didn't really have anything else you could do at that very moment, so that is perfectly fine. One thing you could have done differently is right here. You could weave, now you can weave Minor Arcana. That is one thing that you could do. Another thing you could do is use Celestial Intersection on the tank while they're pulling. That is possibly not necessary, given the tank is at full health now. So, like, the shield might not have done anything. But that is something you could do. The Minor Arcana, however, that one was free, if you like. Also, I am curious what's happening with this macro here, this undraw macro. What is that? What is that, Gazo? I'm very curious what that is doing. Right, so fight begins. So a really good thing to consider here is light speed. Because you're going to be casting a lot of things now optimally. So undraw macro does nothing. The macro name tells me not to. Now that is good. Undraw macro does nothing. The macro name tells me not to undraw. That is really funny. I'm impressed you found an extra slot to just put that there. Right. So that was divination. That's fine. Let's see. Click divination again. Are you attacking right now? there's gravity. And then play card. But right, you play on pretty high latency, right, Gassel? So we have divination, and then you cast gravity, and if your latency is perfect, then this timing would have worked. Because I know you have some latency issues, you need, like, the card play has to happen here. Like, so I'm looking at the clock here. Like, there's about a third of the time left. This timing is like half a second. Like half a second left to react. That would work if you were like on a perfect connection. You forgot the cards. That is fair. That is very fair. Like that happens to me too, just for the record. And remember, when I'm giving this advice, it's not like I'm saying, oh, and I would have gotten it perfectly. I mess up a lot with Astrologian myself. So it's more like I can see what you could have done different, right? But yeah, you have the macro situation over here, so I don't have any advice on that. That is a preference thing. Did you read? Oh, your mouse is off center from where it's supposed to be on your screen. Right. Like I can see you clicked there, but your mouse was here. That happens sometimes. I don't know where that is in the settings. And then we have gravity again. So at this point, the first, like, the problem is, I think, is that if you had used light speed, like, if you had used light speed around now, then you wouldn't have been as pressed for time, because now, like, now you see all the mobs. You want to start casting gravity, you want to place Earthly Star, you want to maybe use Celestial Intersection on the tank. Exaltation, did I mention that? Might also want to put that on the tank in like a second or two. Like, you have so many tools that you can just dump on the tank. But you don't really have time for any of it, because you also want to play 3 cards, use Divination, draw Minor Arcana, play Minor Arcana. Like, there's so many things to keep track of that if you don't use light speed in this moment, it's going to feel like you don't have the space to do any of it. So here you drew a card and clipped your GCD, and then you cast a spell, redraw. I don't think you needed to redraw there. I'm guessing that it's in the confusion of the battle. So you redrew here, you should have just played Bowl on the... So I see that they have Either, so you don't want to use it on the Monk, on the Black Mage, but I would say just play it on the Monk. Because the thing is, what happens is disaster. You don't want that. My advice is generally, if the sign is right, play. But that is, of course, like, I do this too. Like, I get the card with the correct sign and I go, but it would be way better if it was a melee card though. And then I redraw, and then I'm reminded why you don't do that. Because the thing is, so you had the bowl with the correct sign, like the sign you wanted, but it was the incorrect type. If you redraw, there is a 33% chance. There's a 33% chance, so 1 in 3 that you're drawing. Well, there's a 33% chance that you're drawing a good sign still, because you will never draw the sign you just had. So if you had the bowl, you will never draw the solar sign. So that means there's only 1 in... Well, there's actually a 50% chance that you're getting the correct sign, and a 50% chance that you get the moon in this case. But there's also only a 50% chance that you actually get the card type that you wanted, right? There's only a 50% chance that you get the melee card that you wanted. So there's like... well, there is a 50% chance that you get what you want. Well, there's a 25% chance that you get exactly what you want, because you wanted the correct sign with the correct card. But there is a 75% chance that you get something you didn't want. There's a 25% chance that you get the other ranged card with a good sign, and a 50% chance that you get a melee card with the wrong sign, or a ranged card with the wrong sign. And what you got was actually the worst option. So we'd just say, if you get the correct sign, just play. The fact that the card comes out sooner is nice. That is my advice on that. So about now is starting to be a point where maybe it's better to just drop thinking about Earthly Star, because there's a good chance that most of the mobs will be dead if you place it. There's Essential Dignity. And Celestial Intersection. Again, if you had used Light Speed, you might have been able to double weave that with no damage loss. Gravity again, and there again, if you had used Light Speed, I don't know if Light Speed would have been still up by now, but there you would have been able to finish your cast, no problem. And was that... Wait, what was that you cast there? There's Exaltation. On yourself. That is probably a misclick. And then there's Celestial Opposition, that is good, that works. And Aspected Benefic, I would have said... Well, actually, with the tools you have left, it might actually be necessary. So, I'm probably going to be going a little faster through the next pulls, but if we just focus on this, you played one card and drew a new card, and you used Divination, and you used Exaltation very late. Celestial Opposition was fine. Celestial Intersection, you could have used that a bit more aggressively. Essential Dignity, you used it correctly. You might not have needed both in that fight if you had used some of your other tools. Minor Arcana went completely unused, which half the time is a DPS loss. You could have drawn a Lord. Earthly Star was not used. Macrocosmos was not used. You could have used it. You don't have to use that. Neutral Sect was not used. You could have used it. You don't have to. Yeah, there's a lot of tools. The general verdict here is you could probably have gotten away with attacking more, I think. And the Aspected Benefic at the end was probably the most painful, because if you had used your other healing tools a bit better, then you probably wouldn't have needed to do that, and that Aspected Benefic could have been Gravity, right? And yeah, forgetting Earthly Star is a big loss. That is, by the way, one I've done a lot. Like, I have too much footage of me putting down Earthly Star, and then I see the last mob die, and then instead of doing any damage with Earthly Star, there's like this huge explosion of fireworks that just does nothing. So don't worry about it. It's you'll get better at the timing. So I'll set this to double speed and see if I can keep up with this. So you've got your Aspected Benefic up, and you're dotting up. That is, so compared to other healers, especially barrier healers that can attack while AoEing, it makes a lot more sense for Astrologian to like dot everything as they go, because you really want to have light speed later. And if you had done everything that I said you weren't doing, then light speed wouldn't have been available now anyway. So, let's see, there was the Celestial Intersection, that is very good. There's the Earthly Star, nice. And Gravity there. There was a draw card. Also, you played your card, that is good. It also landed on the Black Mage, that's good. And the next card landed on the Monk. And the Monk has his burst here, great. The tank is using Dark Mind, interesting. Interesting move. So a thing that I would recommend you do here is, if you draw Lady of Crowns, that is now your highest priority to spend. you have all of these other heals, but the thing is that Lady of Crowns is not something you should sit on for the most part, unless you like know there's a mechanic where you want to use it. You want to spend it, you want to prioritize it high, because if you don't, it's just going to sit there and you don't know what the cooldown is like left on Minor Arcana until you play it. So you want to go, oh, the Dark Knight is needing healing. Well, I have this. And just get rid of it. It's really nice if multiple players are missing health, of course, but just the tank is fine. And there was the in-combat aspect at Benefic again. I don't think it was needed in this situation. Again, if you had you had other tools, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. There's also this with horoscope that you could have used. This, like, if you saw so on the stream Tuesday, and I'm pretty sure Gazel said they watched it. When incidentally, I also had an Ether Font run on stream. Incredible, I know. I pretty much used Aspected Benefic, Horoscope, Swiftcast, Aspected Helios on every pull that I could do it, because it's a lot of healing over time, and the Horoscope is 400 potency that is coming in about 30 seconds, which is nice. It's like placing down Excogitation, except that you have a button to trigger it if you need it. If you need it early. So there's one thing with this Benefic 2. Gazel said that they used to have an attack button there, so when they're panicking or not like looking closely, then they forget that it's a healing spell. That's okay. I know how that feels like muscle memory. And what do we do here for the boss? There's Aspected Benefic, that's fine. Earthly Star coming down, great. So, Light Speed. Here it comes, maybe. Combust. And Divination. Clicked Divination, notably. Isn't that on E? And a card play on the Monk, great. And then, is there a draw? No. There's a draw. It's the bad card. Is there a redraw? Great. That's a very good card. That goes on the Black Mage. Nice. And then Malefic again. And then we have another draw. That is not great. You want to redraw that? Do you redraw that? Yes. Unfortunate. That one goes... I would say... like, you should put that on yourself. Like, that is probably the best option, because you do only like optimally, like, the Dark Knight's burst is probably ending now. But the thing is, Dark Knights do very, very good burst damage, so it might be worth it putting it on them. The unfortunate reality with playing the card burst, the so-called super dump, is that in a dungeon, there are not 3 DPS to play the cards on, so the third card will always be awkward. The only options you have is either sit on the card until one of the DPS can use it, or play it on you or the tank. And if you sit on it, you will miss out on Astrodyne during raid buffs. However, your raid buffs just ended, so no big deal, right? So this is looking very good so far. Alright, Emir, thank you for checking in. Gazel says, in Dungeon, is it better to do 2 cards per minute compared to 3 cards in Burst? I think it's still better to play the 3 cards together. The thing is that in Dungeons, everything is confusing, right? It's not, your divination is not going to line up perfectly. Your card timing might actually drift because you draw a card. And then you might sit on 2 stacks for some reason after a boss, but divination is ticking down, so like things get really awkward. So the best you can do is like work with what you have. The only reason why it mattered in this specific case was if you played 3 cards, you could have used Astrodyne. If 2 cards was enough for Astrodyne, then just playing a card on each DPS and then using Astrodyne might have been better. I think the important bit is using your cards, and especially using your cards a little extra during divination. But it also depends on a lot of things. Like, the thing is, if you're in a dungeon and you draw a ranged card and you're the only person left to benefit from it, Astrologian's personal DPS is found wanting. Which is why I'm like, I don't actually know if it would be better to put the ranged card on the tank than yourself. But I'm pretty sure it would have been better on you. So, a thing here is that the Minor Arcana is not being drawn. There was an Astrologian, it's fine. That does mean, though, that you might not... Well, actually, you might be able to get it for a divination later. However, now your cards are ready. You need to draw a card. 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 There it is. Alright, Lemon. See you in a bit. And you also drew the other card. Good. And Lord of Crowns. Fine. In this particular case... Well, actually, no. You actually drew the Minor Arcana ages ago, and I just didn't see. But like, if your Minor Arcana cooldown gets drifted so hard that the cooldown is going to be ready after Divination becomes ready, you can use Divination, Lord of Crowns, and then draw new Arcana, so like, get slightly more damage. It's really small, but hey, everything counts. Right. So, as we can see, boss fights, there's far less healing to worry about. But here we have Minor Arcana. I'll pause a lot less now, I think. There's Minor Arcana missing. You have a card. You should redraw that. You should redraw that. You put down Earthly Star. That's good. You don't have your Minor Arcana. You should redraw that. Divination is ready. Lightspeed is ready. You need to draw a card and you need to redraw that and play that. I think you lost out on at least 2 cards in that fight that you could have played. Now you redrew, that's good. And you drew your Arcana. And there's the loot snipe. Earthly Star is not ready, that's fine. Macrocosmos came out, that's good. You need to draw a card. I think you clicked redraw there. There was Exaltation, that's good. That still got its full value, I think. Celestial Intersection is available. You should redraw that. Lady of Crowns is just kind of sitting there. You need to close this loot window. I've had that problem too. There's the Earthly Star, that's good. We have Lightspeed, that's good. You need to redraw that. You instead played it. Oh, that was good. That was not super great. So, you played, drew, didn't use Astrologian, played again, which ruined your Astrologian completely. I think what happened in this situation is that you were focused on performing the card burst correctly, and the thing is that in dungeons, this is a common problem. If you internalize this, the opener, to like perform the opener perfectly, and then you go into a dungeon or an alliance raid, something where there's multiple fights. Often the best opener is no longer the recommended one. I think we did this with Orion a while back in the alliance raid, where like Reaper, everything is lined up. You can open with a double in Shroud. Instead, lost like 50 Shroud gauge and kinda just did the normal opener. But the thing is, they did the opener because it's difficult to like freestyle it. But if you have more resources than you're supposed to, then often a freestyle opener can beat the regular opener. So here, this fight is a little frantic. So like, if you can get like your GCD flowing through the entire fight, that is actually pretty good. Yeah, and I also just say, guys, the trick for me is that if I'm doing a dungeon to record footage for, say, Astrologian, what I'll do is I'll just use the parts where I did well, right? Because I don't need the entire run to, like, teach. So, like, I make those kinds of mistakes too. I genuinely, not joking, when I recorded a level 90 dungeon for the Astrologian guide coming out today, I'm pretty sure that I did the exact same mistake of getting 3 moons because I was fishing with redraw, which is bad. Like, and then I just kind of stood there with the Astrologian, like, well, I guess I'm not using this in the video. So, like, mistakes happen, and the thing with Astrologian is that because you have very little time to think, it turns out that you need a lot of practice to build this muscle memory to do this. There was the Celestial Intersection with Aspected Benefic, that is really good. Divination is ready. Oh, the monk is ready to fight. That is for certain. He's really hoping you click Divination right now, I think. There was Macrocosmos, that's good. Earthly Star came, was used on time. I can see in retrospect cards coming out. That's good. And you're in the awkward position of having a ranged card and all the the ranged is already full. And the loot snipe. Yeah, well, if you use Divination now, that is fine. You might also elect to delay it for the boss. That would also make sense. Although it might be better to use it now. That's hard. That's hard to say sometimes. So you used Celestial Opposition, I think. Yep, there. And well, I will say you're really good about using Essential Dignity. That is one that I'm very good at forgetting. Like, I use everything else preemptively, and then I never think about using it on the tank. Well, they typically don't need it, so it's fine. But like, Essential Dignity could take priority over something else, right? But yeah, I think the things that you need the most is like. So, Horoscope is actually a lot more useful than it looks. I think the thing that you need the most is like use your cooldowns more. You know that you were forgetting the card plays and stuff, so I don't need to tell you that. I imagine. I really recommend using Horoscope more. Swiftcast Aspected Helios is great. Some healers are scared of using Swiftcast for anything other than raise because, oh, what if I need to raise someone? But here's the thing. If a DPS dies in a dungeon pull, so like trash mobs, they're probably not going to be alive in time for it to really matter if you raise them in the middle of the pull. If the tank dies, then you might have bigger concerns than whether you had Swiftcast. It might help, but usually you're in trouble regardless. So it might be better. I think I remember someone said on my White Mage short, I believe, or maybe it was the Scholar one, they said that they love using Swiftcast to prevent deaths over saving it for the inevitable possibility of a death. If you use, so you like, if your tank isn't rushing too hard, then it might be easier to use Horoscope and then a casted Aspected Helios. But if they are rushing, which is the common thing, then you will probably have to use Swiftcast. So yeah, more Horoscope, more cooldowns, less Aspected Benefic in the middle of a pull every time you have to cast a healing spell when there are enemies is a massive DPS loss simply because, well, you could have used Gravity there. Oh, Ari has become my jukebox. But yeah, use your healing buttons a bit more aggressively. Celestial Intersection you can use extremely aggressively. Light speed, like Matthew says, wait, Swiftcast isn't just for moving with Malefic? But yeah, that is fine, Gazel. The thing is that you will learn these things with practice. Like, it will come with more practice. But yeah, if you're forgetting something entirely, then it can be difficult to learn it with practice. So like Exaltation, you should use that. Like when the tank reaches a standstill, you go like Exaltation, Earthly Star, and then you like possibly go through your cards. If you've already set up Aspected Benefic, Horoscope, and Helios, then your tank is probably fine until you've played all of your cards. Like you just play all of them. Just you might have to like have like an eye on the tank's health just in case. But with Earthly Star down, Horoscope ready, possibly a neutral sect shield from Aspected Benefic, or maybe you used Macrocosmos, with all of that prepped, the tank is probably going to be fine for the next 15 seconds. So you can get away with just ignoring them for a little bit. It's really strange, but it means that the way that Astrologian works is that they're like doing a lot of healing in advance. But I think you did well, like no one died. That is also an important factor, as I've mentioned previously. No one died, so you're probably fine, right? But it's more like you could have done better, as we talk about. Now, Sharo was doing a run as warrior here, so let's see how that goes. I see it's a very long clip, so I'll probably like speed that up a little bit. I'll probably turn off the sound if it's a little jarring in high speed. Right, let me just see here. See where we start. It's not you. It is a little foggy. Apparently. Right. So I'm just going to say what, like, I'm actually really good at warriors. So I'm probably going to be pretty strong here at finding the mistakes that I would have made different. You should use sprint now. Now, you didn't use sprint now as far as I can see. Wait, what did you use? It's a little hard to see here. Is that... Okay, that's overpower, right. So, what I would have done different there is... Normally what I do is I will either run up to the pack, so like just body pull them, and then use overpower, and then Mithril Tempest, and then run past. Or sometimes I will taunt the biggest thing in the pack, just because it's easier to click on it, and then overpower and then Mithril Tempest. If there's 3 or 4 mobs, there's 3 in this case, then what I will do, and I do believe I include this in all of my tank guides pretty much, Tomahawk the first mob, tab, provoke, tab, Tomahawk. Basically do like a weave so that you can do 1, 2, 3. And the reason why you do that is because Tomahawk has like a 5 times enmity multiplier. So it does like 750 for warrior, I believe, worth of enmity. Provoke has like 4,000 enmity. It's absolutely insane. But what this means is that you put a huge amount of enmity on all 3 mobs so that they're not going to get, like, you super glue them to you. If you run past them and use overpower, that is like 100 potency in comparison, which makes it a lot easier for your DPS to accidentally over aggro you. So like, if you want to be safe, take the extra seconds to make sure you have everyone on you. That is fine. Even if you have sprint ticking, it doesn't matter. I do this, and I can see now that you're fixing it with tomahawks on everything as you run. That is very good. That is also a good way to like keep attacking as you're ahead and can't cleave anything anyway. What was that? Onslaught. That is also very good. Thank you, Bart. I had not thought about that. Because of course the camera isn't on my screen. Thank you for letting me know. I had completely forgotten. So Onslaught is also like, if I'm warrior specifically, I will usually do overpower Onslaught, Mithril Tempest. And if there's 4 mobs, I will usually, if I'm pulling all of them, I will do Tomahawk, Provoke, Tomahawk, upheaval on the 4th one, and then start running, and then use Tomahawk on it afterwards to make sure it sticks. It's not super important that you're doing the maximum possible damage in that very moment. What matters is that all of the mobs stick to you, so that the DPS, and maybe the healer, can do the maximum amount of damage. So you should have, yeah, you have the Storm's Eye, so now you should want to use Infuriate and Inner Release. And also, well, that was not Onslaught, that was Orogeny, sorry. This is Onslaught. Sorry about that. What I meant is Orogeny on an AoE pack. And Inner Release came out. So my advice here is you want to use Infuriate very early, because the cooldown reduction from using Decimate is very nice to have. So you should use Infuriate as you're like running up here, like when you're coming down the lane here, so that it starts ticking. But other than that, it seems to go pretty well. Did you use Bloodwetting? Bloodwetting is on cooldown, so that's fine. Can I actually see where you're... Let me just see. Right, Vengeance is there. It's a little hard to see when there's the cooldowns over it. So you used Vengeance and Bloodwetting, so that seemed to go pretty well. So here we go again. This is a pack where you pretty much have to use an AoE attack, and Decimate is a very good choice for that. I would still use just an Overpower and Mithril Tempest, personally. Oh! Ah, suddenly the graphic, the quality upgraded immensely. Did the machine just remember that it was recording? Yeah, Bloodwetting came up. Because you're a warrior, you can probably get away with this just fine, but you should probably have used Rampart as Bloodwetting ran out. You used Reprisal here, that is also fine, but I would still have said maybe Rampart would have been better in this case. That's very good. You switched to single target as the mobs were dying. You could have gotten a lot of, like a bunch of free damage with Onslaught so far. Remember that it is also a damage button and not just for movement. Good, keeping the Storm's Eye up. Very good. Seems to work. Onslaught should be used. And there's Vengeance, that's fine. I see you also used Shake It Off a little bit ago. For the most part, there isn't that much to say on boss fights. It's typically like, if you're scared of dungeons or having trouble with dungeons, it's almost always the boss, it's almost always the trash packs, right? They're the ones that are weird. The ones where you can't use your openers, right? You can't like prep really well and damage is crazy. So that's why I'm not really focusing nearly as much on the bosses. The thing that I'm really paying attention to is that Onslaught is... Like, there's cobwebs over here, I think. Remember to use it. It does damage. Ooh. And that was good. It looked like some of the DPS might get hit, and looks like the Samurai did. They might have actually lived because of the Shake It Off right there, so that was very smart. So what you could have done there is you could have used Nascent Flash on the Samurai, but it might be difficult to see if your group needs Nascent Flash if your hotbars are up here. It might help you if you put them like a little further down. Like, I don't know how far down, because in a raid you would have 4 or 5 more things depending on pets and stuff, I think. But just consider it. If you shove the party frames all the way out in a corner, then you're going to miss it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think this fight went overall pretty well. Let me just jump over here. Also, I just want to remind that you can ask questions about stuff that isn't this specific clip that I'm reviewing. If there's something you're curious about or want to talk about as well, we can take them as we go, so don't worry about that. I'm paying attention to the chat and the fight. Did you use sprint in this part either? Let me just check. No. Let me just check something real quick from the really beginning. Is it me that can't see it? I don't see the sprint button at all. So the reason why I'm thinking about that is because Charo mentioned earlier that they have problems with remembering to use sprint. And if they do use sprint, they forget to use other stuff. If sprint isn't on some of your bars, then that is likely to cause that problem. That's fine, Charo, don't worry about it. So I would say put sprint somewhere here. You can even add a hotbar. I'm pretty sure you can just add a hotbar separated from the crossbars where you can track some cooldowns. But yeah, like if you're having trouble tracking things because everything doesn't fit on your bars, on your crossbars here, just put like a regular hotbar with some cooldowns that you want to keep track of. I think Gazel showed that off on theirs, but Gazel uses mouse and keyboard, I believe, so that is of course a different story. Also, hey Tracy, I hope you're doing well. Sounds like you are. But yeah, sprint should have, like, you use sprint before you use tomahawk. No, Hoji says I have a little hotbar next to my cross hotbar with sprint in it. But yeah, I'm going to be focusing on the cooldowns now, like the defensive cooldowns, because I could say, oh, you didn't use onslaught for the entire video. I see one onslaught was used, but I think it was used more for movement. I didn't really see. So here you could do the tomahawk provoke tomahawk trick, and that's fine, I suppose. Again, if you had used sprint, you wouldn't have needed to use onslaught in that way, and it would have been more smooth for your team to keep up with you. When you onslaught ahead, then the mobs, they, in my experience, they tend to like run a little bit faster than players. So unless your team is using sprint, they will actually, like, your samurai will be like running behind the mobs, like, get back here! I can't Midari Setsugeka you if you're so far away. So like if you're sprinting, you can smooth, like it might, I'm not saying it will, but sometimes it makes the movement a little smoother so that your DPS can keep up. But it is complicated. And I'm not saying that that's the correct answer every time, but sprint just before you start a pull is always a clear winner in my experience. Because it makes the movement more smooth than when you do the snappy onslaught dashes. But you can do both. You will see in like when I'm playing tank, I often will use onslaught. If, for example, there's two mobs at the end of a pull, I'll tomahawk one, onslaught the other. But yeah, now we have the second boss. I am relatively confident that there's nothing particularly problematic here. So I'm going to like, so they will shake it off for the raid wide. That is good. Onslaught is ready. Upheaval was used good. How does Endwalker middle boss theme speedy cake mix sound, guys? That is, of course, me putting up the speed of the footage. I mean, it looks like this is going really well overall. I don't really have much to add. I see that actually I do have something to add, because you did use all of your onslaughts, which is good. There's also the thing to mention is that if you follow like optimization, normally a warrior's like, oh, you should save your beast gauge to burst when there's raid buffs up. Onslaught, you should do that as well. But this group literally has no raid buffs, so there's no benefit to sitting on anything. I also want to add that it seems like you got a lot better about using Infuriate early and before inner release later in the dungeon. So I think this is going really well. It's mainly the onslaught thing, and didn't you sprint there? Let me just I'm pretty sure you didn't you? Yeah, there, look, there's the sprint. And there's a good pull there with Decimate. Nice, you've done that consistently. That is pretty good. And here you do perfect. Excellent. On Bloodwetting, look at this. Like like the only thing I have here is the onslaught thing, but this is really nice. There's the vengeance right on cue. Perfect. Excellent. Very, very nice. It's just the onslaught thing that I have right here. You could use Bloodwetting, you do. Perfect. Like, look at that. Look, see, Sharo, you can do it. This is perfect. This is really good. Like, the only thing was, and you did actually use Onslaught there at the end. Like, you could have used one so that it wasn't, like, standing fully charged, but then you used 2 for damage to kill the last mob when there was only 1 left. That is pretty good. That is pretty good. That is excellent, because sometimes that happens, that there's 1 mob left, and then keeping some exclusively single target buttons. That works. And Gazel says he sprinted, but not the others. Well, the thing is that this is exactly the reason why it's super important to be consistent as a tank, because the 3 other players probably didn't sprint because they didn't expect it, because Sharo hasn't been sprinting for most of the dungeon. So that's why it can be problematic if you suddenly switch it up. But that's like a whole different story. Like, that is like even more optimization, right? And then you're suddenly optimizing the social aspect of a dungeon run. Like, being predictable in this aspect. Like, that is... We'll get to that. But I want to say, I just want to be clear, Sharo, you did the trash packs here at the end of the dungeon extremely well. So the way that you do sprinting, Hoshi, is you use sprint like 1 second before you enter combat. The reason why you do that is because if you sprint before you enter combat, it lasts 20 seconds. And those 20 seconds stay when you enter combat. If you use sprint when you're already in combat, it only lasts 10 seconds. So you start sprinting before you enter combat, then you get more sprint. And those extra 9 seconds are always a win. Like, it's always better. So that is why. And we talked about earlier that sprint is technically like a damage reduction cooldown in a way, but it's a little more complicated than that. It's more a defensive cooldown when you're soloing stuff. Or you're running away because you're out of cooldowns, you're kiting. Yeah, I think this, like, specifically the last 2, like, I'm not super focused on the boss fights. That is usually perfectly fine. And then it's more like about rotational finesse, and that's a whole different story. But Sharo, those 2 last pulls there in this dungeon on the trash before this boss was nice. Do like that. Just keep doing like that. Anything to say at my hotbar? No. I don't judge how people do their hotbars. The only thing I have to add is that if you're having trouble remembering to sprint, put your sprint somewhere, like anywhere. There's a free slot there next to Holmgang and Defiance, but put it somewhere so you can see it. But that's only because you said you have sometimes trouble remembering to use it. But other than that, I don't judge people on their hotbars, because each player does it differently. You need to do your hotbar in the way you like and the way you need it. If you say that your setup has a problem of some sort, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, then we can talk about if there's a problem. But if it works for you, then I have nothing to add. Basically, yeah, those last 2 packs were great. Very nice. Yeah. Take that with you and remember that you can do it, right? And then remember to use Onslaught a little bit more aggressively. Right, so finally we have Fila's White Mage. Oh, that's a little sharp, that sound. Yeah, that's also true, guys. Who says maybe you could put it next to the slide casting emote thing you have. Oh, food on the hotbars. I suppose that works. A tip that I would give for White Mage, again, this is a personal thing. Also, wow, you need some space, my friend. But in my experience, it is way easier to track your lilies if you have the simplified bar. Let me show you what I mean. So you can see I have this one. If you prefer the bigger one because it is bigger, you can just make it ridiculously big if you want to. But the reason why is that this bar is a lot easier to track than the blinking little dot on the plant. If you prefer it the way that you have it, fine. But it's it's specifically White Mage that has this thing where its gauge is, in my opinion, really difficult to follow. I'll try and see, like, if I need to slow down, I'll slow down, but otherwise, let's see. Actually, I might have needed to slow down. Let's just take the first pack a little slower. So, Region on the tank, that is good. You could also put Divine Venison on the tank if you want to. Dots on everything, very good. The tank could, you could use Divine Venison on the tank. Asylum preemptively, that is good. Was that the latency trick? Was that the latency trick? Look at this. So, Asylum, weave Swift Cast into hard casting Holy 3. I just want to say, if you play Final Fantasy XIV, if you play Final Fantasy XIV on a perfect connection, you can't do this. This is a lag-only optimization. You can pre-cast Swift Cast. That's genius. You would actually just want to point out, if you do this normally, Fila, what you should do is you should Holy again now, not as eyes, Holy again, because then you actually benefit from not having to weave Swift Cast. So you do Holy again and then as eyes, for example. And then you do Aqua Veil and Divine Venison, that is very nice. And then Holy, and I see it clipped there more so because of latency. That is the unfortunate reality of things. And there was a Lily, and here comes the Discord. So, right now the tank doesn't need anything. The tank doesn't need anything. You have to run. What you could do for slight optimization is, here, you cast Afflatus Solace, the single target Lily heal on the tank, because you're running anyway. And you cast Glare, you can do that, I suppose. Another thing is you could have used Presence of Mind. like when you had the Swift cast, you could have done Holy Assai's Presence of Mind spam. That of course would mean you didn't have Aquavale and Divine Benison, but that is an entirely different story. There was an Afflatus Rapture there. That's fine, it looks like everyone took some damage. So here the fight is wrapping up. So if you don't need your lilies, like if you don't need them, then this is actually a great time to just dump them. Actually, just a moment. Now you can see the inventory, guys. Yeah, now you could dump lilies if you don't need them. Yeah, there's the region. You could use... Well, you can't use Divine Benison this time because you already did. And then the dots on the mobs as you run, that is good. So, Swift cast, Holy Assai's. You might want to use Presence of Mind. I'm going to speed up the footage now. You have 2 lilies. What happened there? Oh, there was lag. That is probably for the best. Like, my advice is that you should typically weave a lily if you're going to cast a healing spell, but if you're going to use Benediction, then it's a little wasteful to do that. That's going well. I hope you're using Presence of Mind when we get to the boss fight. There's a precast Glare. Here, Presence of Mind. Glare. You have lilies. You have lilies. You have... Well, now, you have lilies. I would recommend spending them just... Mainly because you actually have 2 raid buffs. So like, you can actually benefit from doing that. You use the lily there, that's good. Using... Oh, nice. Plenary Indulgence with a lily, that is good. Very good to use your Plenary Indulgence when you have it. It's very easy to forget that it exists sometimes. And that's Assai's, nice. Redot, nice. And the Liturgy of the Bell came down, nice. That is very good. I think, did it spend 1 or 2? Can't remember, does it start on 5 stacks? Yeah, so there's 1 hit. So if there's more damage coming in, and there could be, depending on the position of your group, then the Lily might help you a lot. Oh, you actually got... You got a lot of healing out of that Lily. That's very good. That Liturgy of the Bell, sorry. Not to confuse it with a Lily. And then you have 3 lilies, so you want to do that. You did that, great. And then the Misery. I think this is going really well, honestly. The thing is, and this is a case of if you're attacking for the majority of the fight as a healer and you're not like letting anyone die, then like, oh, well, you couldn't have saved him. I think that was 2 overlapping AoEs. That's not on you. And the boss is basically dead, so it's actually more efficient to let them raise on their own. Good. Fila went over to the corpse and let them know that they have to release. Yeah, I think this has been going really well. So there's the region. That's good. You could use Divine Benison, but when the tank is at full health, you might not need it. There's the Asylum. Assai's. It's good that you're using the lilies aggressively. Castle, how smiles and cold in Japanese? Here's a tip. If you're recording something, if you set yourself to do not disturb, then Discord should not say anything. Discord can also track if you're using OBS, which can help with that. Amy asked, whose clip is this? This is Fila's clip. Fila from that plays on the Oceanic data center. But I think this is going really well. I believe Fila says that they are a healer main, so that is not surprising. Oh boy, there's a... Wow! Oh boy! The big lag. But yeah, a trick that I would say I like, it's hard to say when it is necessary to do, Fila, but if you are in a situation where you don't need to use your lilies in the middle of a fight, like if you have a tank that is just like a warrior and they don't need any healing, or hardly need any healing, so you're just sitting on your lilies, just spend your lilies between fights so that you can start a fight with Misery available, because Misery, so your Blood Lily, does a ludicrous amount of AoE damage. So if you can get those on the AoE packs, that is actually way better than using them on the boss. If you can. Yeah, round 3 of Arcus in Aetherfont, and there was the Lily, just in time. I wonder if that will prevent some extra damage. I suppose you can dodge everything here, so... That's really good. So one thing that I think is really particularly good about this is that you're actually remembering to use the Liturgy of the Bell, because that is a cooldown that is so insanely aggressive in terms of like how much healing you can do with it, that it is pretty common for... Oh, you're running the wrong way. It's pretty common to completely forget that you can use it, because it's like... pretty much anything you can use Liturgy of the Bell for is too much. Like, it is incredible overkill for most situations you can use it for. So it's easy to forget about it. So I just want to highlight that it's really good that you are using it. On the other hand, Presence of Mind is not getting used on trash packs. You should do that more. To spam Holy harder. That is my recommendation on that one. And yeah, I'm going a little faster through this because I don't feel like Fila's making a lot of mistakes or anything like very much that I can highlight. Like, for instance, I could talk about the fact that Thin Air is hardly getting used, but Fila's at full MP, so it doesn't really matter. But Presence of Mind should be used. Like, it's right there. Could increase your damage. Fila's also doing things like intentionally letting the tank drop dangerously low to use Benediction on them. The one thing that I would say about that is your tank is a Gunbreaker. If you let the Gunbreaker drop to like 10% HP, if you let the Gunbreaker stay at like, you drop all the way to like 15 or 10% HP, they're likely to click Super Bolide out of fear. They don't know if you've forgotten about them. And if you plan to use Benediction right there, what might happen is the classic Benediction Super Bolide. And then you have no Benediction. So just keep that in mind. It is much less of an issue with the other tanks. Because especially Paladin and Warrior don't really mind. In fact, the Warrior might appreciate that you let them drop low so they can use Bloodwetting better. But Dark Knight and Gunbreaker each have some reactions that are counterintuitive to using Benediction. I'm not saying that using Benediction in this way is in any way wrong. I'm just saying that there is a chance that it can go horribly wrong if your tank doesn't trust you. Like that is a consideration, but you played it perfectly. The only thing that I have to add, I don't think I saw you use Temperance much. I didn't see you use Presence of Mind on trash. Those are things that I would highly advise. And other than that, oh, that was a lot of damage. Lucky you didn't die from it. Yeah, you even used Thin Air right there. From Medicat too. That is probably good. You could probably have used Afflatus Rapture instead. But overall, I think that was good. I don't know if Fila is in the chat. Yeah. Let me just get the sound on again. I think that so overall, all 3 clips good. And remember, just important detail. Remember that if interesting place to stand, Aria. You don't need flooring. But Gazel had a run where no one died. The only thing I had to add was that, like in particular, that there was a lot of cards not being used, a lot of cooldowns that could have been used, but ultimately no one died. So the main loss was the card plays that could have been played, and I think there was an Earthly Star that wasn't used at the start, and then there was times where you used Aspected Benefic while they were attackable targets, which you might have been able to avoid. Sharrow was mainly a thing with Onslaught not being used for damage, and Sprint wasn't being used enough, but most of the problems that I highlighted throughout that clip was resolved in the final dungeon pulls. And for Fila, it is mostly remember to use Presence of Mind on trash as well. Other than that, I think it was pretty fine. I would you can optimize with White Mage because of Holy having no weaving space. You can optimize a little bit. Like if you Swift cast a Holy, that gives you a double weave to use as Eyes and Presence of Mind. But if you're playing on latency, which I believe Fila is, that will still not be perfect. So you might just not be able to do it perfectly. But I think all 3 were good. As I said, if no one dies and the dungeon goes smoothly, that's fine. Yeah, let me just see some things I didn't respond to. Cheryl said I put a picture up which shows my hotbar with Sprint beside the slide casting. I'll check it later, I think. And another question, is it okay if I record runs for Nelva or Hoshi? Because her PC is not nearly strong enough for excessive recording. If you can record from their perspective, it's really difficult for me to give them advice if I can't actually see their hotbars and see what they're using. But we can see what we have, right? If you post a clip, the worst thing that can happen is that I don't have a lot of things to say on it. We have time, so that's why I went through everything in all 3 clips. But normally I might if we have a lot of clips, it might be better to just focus on a specific encounter instead of an entire dungeon. Gazel says maybe using the bell in the trash pool, then stay in AoE to spam Holy. That could work. That could work. I would say you should make sure to be very familiar with the dungeon before you do that. Because some of the avoidable AoEs can have painful side effects. Maybe a jellyfish casts a circle AoE and you think, oh, that's just damage. Turns out, yeah, it does damage. It does a lot of damage, in fact. And it also gives you paralysis. Meaning that it wasn't worth it. Please don't mess with my music when I'm streaming, Seb. But I don't mind Papaya, but it's the context. You could do that. The reason why Gasul says maybe use the bell and trash pulls and then stay in AoE is because, like, the key problem as a white mage during AoE is that if you have to heal the tank, then it means that you have to stop casting Holy, because you cannot do anything else while you're casting Holy, whereas all the other healers can cast their OGCD stuff while attacking, making it less of a problem. But with White Mage, you either have to use Aflato's Misery, dot something, or, you know, use a Lily. But that's the only way to efficiently find time to cast an OGCD. But if you can put down Liturgy of the Bell, you can at least guarantee like 1,000 healing potency in like, is it 15 seconds? It doesn't even say. Wait, it says 20 seconds, sorry. 20 seconds in advance. But if you get hit by anything, it doesn't even matter whether it's avoidable AoE or unavoidable AoE. If you get hit by anything, Liturgy of the Bell pops for 400 potency. And every time you get hit by something, 400 potency. So if the healing from Liturgy of the Bell can keep you alive through the AoE damage, you can basically use this as like a super regen that you can use to heal the tank during a trash pull. Now, because it's 3 minutes, you have to choose between using it on the first like mob pack, the second mob pack, or the boss, because you're probably not going to have it for more than one of the three. And if you like to have it for a boss fight, that makes sense, often you're more likely to find use for it. Like for example, Fila that had this incredible timing with Liturgy of the Bell on the first boss, the big fish boss, where Liturgy of the Bell was placed down like a fraction of a second before a raid wide, and then a spread marker came down, and that landed just before the Liturgy of the Bell ended, which led to another burst of healing, and then the bell exploded for the remaining healing. Like, that is really good. And you really, like, might have been accidental, but if it wasn't an accident, I'm pretty sure Fila would have done that, would have had to do that a few times to get the timing exactly right. So that is really nice. But yeah, you could use Liturgy of the Bell like that. It's a similar reasoning to how Astrologian works, in that with Astrologian you place a bunch of healing in the future so that you have the safety to like draw your cards, play your cards. Also, maybe we should go outside. Are there anyone outside? Maybe everyone's downstairs. I'll just run around a little bit. I've just been standing there for the entire stream. No one's down here. Then we go outside. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see tricks like that. I myself often forget to use Liturgy of the Bell as a white mage, simply because of that reasoning that it is insane overkill for most things. Especially because often in a dungeon, you're spending the entire dungeon looking for reasons to use your lilies. Sharo, you can post a clip if you want to, but the important part is, and this also applies just in general, if you're posting a clip, it would be better if you like focus it on something, because as you can see, if you post a 20-minute clip, then I have to like go a little fast, otherwise we're sitting here for the entire stream just looking at that one clip. So it's better if like you go, I did this dungeon, there was this specific pull, can we look at that? Or something else, like say something specific that you want to hear advice about, because then I can focus on that. Like if you go, oh well, I don't know how I'm doing with like starting a pull, or am I doing the pulling right, or do I heal too much, or something, then I can look at that. But if you say, just give me general advice, then I have to watch the entire video and look at everything on your entire screen, every single frame, to give you proper advice. So it can be really difficult for me to give, like, strong advice, because there's too much, right? But you can anyone can post the clips they want. It's just that the longer the clip, the more, like, the faster I have to, like, kind of go through it, which means that you might, like, not get as much out of it. And Zip, Mackerel, who is the acclaimed white mage main, except when he's not, says he just used lilies in between pulls. I also recommend doing that, but the thing is that if you have a tank that needs healing in between pulls, then having lilies for the pulls might be good. Well, needs lilies during pulls. Yeah. Did the live chat die? Did I talk you all to sleep? Is this thing on? Nope. Okay. Apparently, me who else is falling asleep over there. But that is you can do a lot of things. And as I said, for all 3 runs, and we've talked a lot about this, especially like yesterday and a little bit today, that playing perfectly can sometimes feel like a requirement. Like, it's like if you watch a guide that says this is the opener, then it can sometimes sound like you have to do this. Or you see a tank guide that says, oh, you have to use these cooldowns like this and you have to pull like that. It makes it sound like you have to do this. You don't. The key thing is that if you do the things that guides, like my guides, advise, it's typically either a little bit more efficient or safer. And when I say safer, I've been told that most tanking starter guides tell you to wall pull. Just blank statement, always wall pull. I don't know for sure because I don't really watch others' tank guides, because I feel like it almost feels like I'm stealing their ideas if I do that. And also because I know how to tank. But of course, I might be able to learn something from them. But specifically the wall-to-wall pull thing is like... that one is actually really dangerous to teach just blankly to everyone. If you've ever had a tank in a Realm Reborn dungeon... oh, I sold 2 pairs of glasses. I'm selling glasses, everyone. I sold 3 pairs of glasses. If you've ever had a tank in a Realm Reborn dungeon that literally keeps pulling until there is a wall preventing them from continuing, and sometimes because there isn't a wall in front of the boss, they pull the boss too, and then you promptly wipe, that's because if you're told to just wall-to-wall pull with no context, that happens. Because the person was told, just wall-to-wall pull, you were a tank, that's how you do it, and they just go, well, I suppose healer can take it. Like, they don't have the reference. They don't know for sure, which also means that if a healer watches a tank guide, thinks that they're just supposed to take that, they go into Sastasha and their tank pulls 8 packs, then you don't feel very confident as a sprout healer. A broccoli, as they're sometimes called if it's a conjurer. And that doesn't help either, right? The tank is like, I'm supposed to be able to do this. Is it me who's wrong? Or is the healer not strong enough? Or what's happening? And in reality, it's because to wall pull Sastasha's first, like from the first room of Sastasha all the way to the first boss, you need a scholar as your healer, good gear, regardless of what tank you are. The scholar needs to have good gear, and the scholar needs to be ready for that. Because if they fall behind, you die. And even if they don't fall behind, you might die. Because neither of you have the cooldowns to deal with anything going wrong. Like, the scholar might need to use Swift Cast to cast Physic on you as they run. To, like, help the pet. Like, it's an extremely difficult pull to pull all that. But if you're told that it can be done, then you might just do it. And the problem is that in reality, a tank guide that says just wall-to-wall pull, what they really mean is like from somewhere around here and beyond, you can do wall-to-wall pulls, and on average, it's going to be fine. And I'm saying from here because even in Heavensward, there are some really strange dungeons at times. And some of them don't even allow you to pull more than one pack. But a Realm Reborn? No. So like, it's really complicated to say what is right and what is wrong. And also Tristan DeBart says, Stone Vigil and Aurum Vale enters the chat. Well, the thing is that Stone Vigil is really a really harsh one. Because the first part of the dungeon has 5 packs, I believe? Yeah, 5 packs. And the 2 first packs are fine to pull together, but if you add the 3rd pack, it can very easily become overwhelming. But if you pull it like 2, 2, and then 1, then the last pack is kind of weak. And the 3rd and the 4th pack is kind of fine to take together, but the 5th pack might be rough. In fact, the distance from the 3rd to the 4th pack is easy to demotivate a tank from pulling more than 3 packs. But that 3rd pack itself is really mean. And Aurum Vale, it's weird in its own right. In Aurum Vale, it's weird because there are 2 common ways to pull that dungeon. Let me just actually go into the dungeon just to show what I mean. Might be easier if we can look at it. There's 2 common ways to pull the dungeon. Or the first room. Like, after the first room, it becomes a lot easier. But, like, this first room, the big danger zone, depending on where this guy is when you come down here, because that is a little bit random, it might walk this way, you pull this or skip it and run down this way and pull these, and then depending on where this guy is, he just might choose to party. You pull this, right? But if you pull all this, the only way to survive this pull is if the tank does this, and if the healer doesn't know that, the tank dies. Because the tank needs healing while doing this pull. The healer needs to be ready to run around the corner and help with healing. But the safe pull, which, well, the mobs are on me now, so kind of stuck with it. The safe pull, well, those can also join you sometimes. The safe pull is just to pull that guy and the F stools here into this corner, like right up in the corner, and fight them here. And the reason why that is... Okay, I'm done with you guys. Thank you very much. The reason why doing the pull like this, where you're pulling all the way up in the corner here, is that there are so many small patrols running around this room, right? And while the tank is standing here, and so, like, the samurai melee DPS is standing here, just fighting them because they have no reason to be anywhere else. The black mage is standing here. Because why would they go closer? They can reach from here. And if you didn't get the frog, then the black mage is bound to get caught by the frog at some point. And the healer's probably possibly also standing here unless they ran up to AoE. But any ranged might genuinely elect to be anywhere on this area just cause reasons. Which is also why my advice for ranged jobs, both mages and ranged physical, is if you have no good reason to be far away, come closer. Just get up to the tank. It's safer that way. There's a reason the tank is hiding up all the way in the corner over here. And it's not because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of those guys. And that guy. The big chunky boy over here. And so, the prevailing strategy for the tanks that can deal with it is literally to just go pull this through here, pray that there's not a Veil Wasp or Frog Patrol and just grab the 2 Lilies of the Veil that are here, run around the corner, and the reason why you run around the corner is because the Lilies of the Veil are ranged, so you need them to come with you. And, and this is the even sillier part, the reason you're line of sighting in this way is actually mainly because you need the Black Mage or Bard or Dancer or whatever you have to come with you. You need to force them to come with you because some players don't realize that it's a problem that they're not walking with you in this particular case, and then they pull something and then you wipe. So the warriors actually both line of sighting the ranged mobs in the pack, but they're also intentionally line of sighting their own party to force this pull to work. But it is the more difficult pull to do. It is just more consistent because you can force the ranged players to go into the safe spot, whereas in the safer pull, you can't. I hope that makes sense. Gazel says, and the scholar won't have time to read the note. I so want to do you pull, you tank, but by yourself in Sastasha. Wait, what? What do you mean? That the tank just needs to deal with it themselves? But yeah, that is true. It's a really, like, it's a very old school detail about old dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV, is that some of them have like small gimmicks like that. I'm just going over it because occasionally there's someone that doesn't even know that this is a trick or a thing in Sastasha. But oh, nearly 500,000 HP, nice. Oh, and these pull automatically apparently. This bloody memento over here that is off the beaten path tells you what color coral you need to click on. So it says cabbage is, the captain likes his cabbage green, so the correct answer is green. So if no one checks the note, then you have to guess. You just have to guess. It doesn't save that much time, but it does save time if someone looks at it, because if you guess wrong, then if you guess wrong, then you have to deal with the trash pack and guess again, if I remember correctly. We can test this in a moment as I'm getting down there. Gazel says, you know, if the tank only pulls 2 groups at a time, I can place a fairy at the T-shaped road and I go and read the note. Oh yeah, that's true. That is a really neat trick with a scholar that is very aware of pet management, that you can actually like angle your pet so that you can heal around corners. So right, we know the correct answer is green, so if I do the red one here, we get a dot that lasts a minute and does, well, actually lasts more than a minute, and it does something like 10 damage, 9 or 10 damage per tick, it seems. So that is, I can't remember how much that is, but I'm pretty sure you have like 3 or 4, maybe 500 HP. I think like 400 in Sastasha. So 2 minutes of 10 damage every 3 seconds. And sometimes 1, apparently. You will take something in the ballpark of like 1,000 damage from that dot if the healer doesn't know to use Asuna. So if I do the blue coral this time, you get the dot again. And another mob to kill. But if you just click it correctly the first time, nothing happens. And you can click this. So like the 5 seconds of running over and clicking the note and reading it can save you like 20 seconds. Ymia says I'm playing Final Fantasy. Did you see Final Fantasy 3? I've never played that game, so I wouldn't know what advice to give you. But yeah, this is also why it is important to sometimes focus on the why of doing things in a dungeon. Like me giving advice on how to use your cooldowns instead of saying use your cooldowns in this exact order. We talk about in my guides, I would say typically I say you can use them in this order, is because if you don't understand why you're using a button, then you will not know what to do if the specific situation doesn't come up. Like, this is similar to an opener. If you learn the opener, but you have more resources than the opener assumes that you would have, then you could do better than the opener. But if you only learn the opener and not like any capacity to freestyle it, then it can be really difficult. And that is the same thing with wall-to-wall pulls. Why are you wall-to-wall pulling? How much do you need to pull and things like that is important. Because if you don't understand the why, then you're going to pull everything in Autumn Vale. Or a Stone Vigil. Or a Sastasha. Personally, when I'm doing a Stone Vigil, I typically pull the first room as 2-2-1, even though it gets a little awkward when you do it like that. Because the thing is that... Oh, okay, so thank you, Lemon. I hope you're having a good day as well. The thing is that... And I think maybe Gazel might, or Orion might be able to, given they played on Japanese data centers, might be able to recognize this a little bit more based on what I've heard about Japanese data centers, is that what you want is a consistent strategy that works kind of like regardless of the performance of your team. Like, you want to use a strategy that works for the average player. So like, if you're a tank, you don't want to pull more than what like an average performing healer can do, because then you're going to wipe if they can't keep up. If you're a healer, then you have to just pray that the tank isn't overpulling to their ability, even if you're good. And I'm pretty sure I've heard that in the Japanese data centers they are more likely to pull a little bit less on packs where we know in EU and NA that, oh, this pull is really, really rough. Meanwhile, in Japanese data centers, they don't pull it like that. Like, they will just pull a little less, because that is actually a dangerous pull. They wouldn't do that. I don't know for certain. It is just something I've been told. Sharo says, do you also look on clips with mods on? I can, but I heavily advise that you don't post clips with mods on for your own sake. It depends on the mod. As far as I know, visual changing mods are typically not punished, really. Like something that just changes how something looks visually, like a different gear piece, or maybe a new fancy hairstyle, or something with the lighting, or something like that. But if you have a DPS meter prominently displaying on your screen, you need to hide that somehow. You don't want that on your footage. But let me just check what I've written on that. Because I actually have a note about some of the information. Is that I don't think I've actually... Yeah, so I've said if you send in a clip with mods implied, it is partly on your own risk. However, I may choose to skip a clip specifically because of mobs too, for your safety. So if you send in a clip with mods, I might take a look at it and go, oh, I don't feel comfortable with showing this off, and then I will simply skip it. But I will tell you if that is the reason why I'm skipping it. So it depends. Like, if you're playing anything beyond vanilla, and I can see it clearly, I might. Licky says, you didn't skip my clip that had mods. I didn't notice the mods. And also, you surprised me a lot with the clip. As you may have noticed, Licky, I didn't read what you asked me to check on the clip. And I didn't even answer it. So, the thing is, if you send in a clip in the middle of the stream, there's a very, very low chance that I will actually check it nowadays. Because I need to look at it beforehand. Specifically for reasons like this. So that is not going to happen again, Licky. Yeah, if you use mods on your clips, it becomes maybe I will check it on the stream. But if that is the reason, I will tell you. And class animation overhauls, I think, is a bit much. The thing is, if you change the animation of all attacks, then I can't give you any advice because I can't recognize the abilities. So that is like, you're basically saying, can you grade my homework? Give it to me, and then you've scribbled like nonsense over every single page, right? Like, you're not helping me there. It's like how I've mentioned that when, like, for example, with Gazel, who plays on the Japanese client, here we have a completely different situation, because the thing is, if Gazel changes their game to English so that I can read what they're doing easily, then Gazel is going to play worse because it looks wrong. And then it means that all of my advice is completely pointless, because Gazel is obviously making more mistakes than they normally would because they changed it. But, like, if you're using a mod to change every single animation on your job and then ask me to look at it, I'm like, I don't know what button you're using. Like, you made it so that whenever you use overpower, your warrior pulls out a bowling ball and just throws it forward. And also the icon isn't even overpower anymore. It actually is just a bowling ball with bunny ears on it. Like, I can't do anything with that, right? I can't help you with that. Like, then I'll have to go, what's this button? What's this button? What's this button? And have you explain it to me every time. So we don't want that. So it depends. It depends on the mod. But if it's for the most part readable and it doesn't look too outlandish, I don't mind. If you're using things like a DPS meter or Cactbot, you should hide it. If it's visible on the footage, then I will not review it for your safety. Because those are performance enhancing mods, and those can get you punished. I think we'll have to talk about that later, Licky. Mihuel says, nonsense on every single page. That's just regular homework. Yeah. That is you know, I have actually, when I was a teacher's assistant at university, I did receive so there was this assignment where you had to do some programming, you had to do a sorting algorithm, and you had to send me the code to run, and then, because university reasons, you had to print out your code and give it to me so that I could grade it. I only had to say, is it good or is it bad? And if it's good, it's automatic pass. If it is bad, then I hand it to the actual professor, and then they figure out whether it's good or bad. And there were cases where I looked at it and was like, I'm not sure what they're supposed to be doing here. Like, I don't know what this program is supposed to be doing. Like, names that made no sense on variables, random functions that didn't really do what they were supposed to be doing. Sip says, you reckon they'd ban someone over the Clippy mod, considering how useful it is? I don't know. The thing is that I'm pretty sure that a lot of players have been perfectly fine, even recording with a DPS meter. But the thing is, and this is the key thing with all mods, and I feel like I have to say this every time we talk about mods, just to be safe for those that don't know. Mods are not allowed officially, they are illegal. And the only reason that all the players making their dance modification mods and their hairstyle changes and their face changes and their clothes they add to the game and Mare Lamentorum anyone, all of that is only allowed until they start choosing to not allow it anymore. And you could wake up tomorrow to see a developer post, you know, from Square Enix saying, we are now indiscriminately banning everyone we have detected have used a mod at all. And given the terms of agreement that you signed when you made your account, they have their full discretion to do that. That's your fault that you used the mods in the first place. So that is why I'm saying mods are used at your own risk, because you don't know when they say stop. And you don't know how it looks when they say stop. So, like, watch yourself, right? Like, the thing is, as I said, visual mods that don't give you any combat advantage whatsoever are typically safe. But you could argue there's exceptions. In P3, the Phoenix, where the entire arena is just orange. I heard a lot of players say that it was nearly impossible to see the telegraphs on the floor because everything was orange and the telegraphs are orange, right? So what some players did was they used a mod to change the, like, I can't remember if they changed the weather or if they changed the color of things in the arena to make things like gray or blue or something like that, so that they could see the telegraphs. Obviously, the development team should have made telegraphs a different color than orange for that specific fight. Somehow they should have done that. Like, maybe use more pink telegraphed things or blue things. Like, they have spread markers that are blue and they have spread markers that are pink. So, like, they could have made them stand out more. But if the vision was that the fight is orange and the telegraphs are orange, so they're hard to see, and that's the point, and it could be, like, that could be the vision of the fight. ironically, vision of the fight. Which means that it would be considered cheating to change the color of the arena. And you don't know if you could receive punishment for doing that. And the thing is, if you're not recording using mods, exactly, Licky, some colorblind players couldn't see anything in the fight, and that is why I'm saying the real problem in that fight was with the design. And there should be some solutions so that you can see what you're doing. But if you start using mods, then you can make a colorblind player actually have an advantage over a non-colorblind player in this particular regard, because the colorblind player uses a mod and the non-colorblind player doesn't, for example. That shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter. But that is why mods is like a really touchy subject, because on one hand, giving your character like comically long anime hair just because you like it like that doesn't hurt anyone. No one else can even see it. No one cares that you're playing with a nude mod or something. No one can see it. So if that's what gets you excited for Savage raiding, go for it, my man. Just don't post it on YouTube, right? But if it starts giving you an inherent advantage, such as, but not limited to, a mod telling you when mechanics are happening, or literally highlighting mechanics on the floor for you that would otherwise not be visible, or you have like a map telling you where the safe spot is on your screen, automatically before you can even see the mechanic, and yes, that can happen. Or, and this is a good one, what if you used a mod to allow you to zoom further out than is normally allowed? Could you imagine that? Like, specifically with the mod that calls out mechanics, it reads the battle log to do that, typically, and that meant that back when Shiva Unreal was a thing, so you know how there's a let me see, can I see it over here? Yeah, so the Unreal encounter changes like every patch. Back when Shiva Unreal was a new thing, this mod could actually tell you what weapon Shiva was pulling out next on frame 1. Before she had even gotten rid of her current weapon, it would already be able to tell you, she's bringing out a sword and shield next. Which means that people using this mod had an objective, like, advantage. They could move seconds in advance to react to this mechanic, whereas players that weren't using the mod, they would have to wait until she actually pulled out the weapon to be able to react to it. Which is unfair, right? Now, the thing is, you didn't need to react that fast, but if you're like, I don't know, a black mage, you could plan your triple cast better if you knew. And hey, Coco! Gaza says, this is only a problem if you're using mods and you tell someone about it. Unless you're doing an account ban RTA, then use all the mods and stream the whole thing. But yeah, the trick is don't, like, if you're using mods, don't talk about it in game, and don't record yourself with the with the contraband, right? And just for the record, I don't use any mods. Any mods at all. This came up on Discord earlier. Someone on a video asked me why my passes were in like normal content, and I could then respond, I don't log anything. Like, I don't even I don't even have FF logs to log with. So that isn't even me posting them, which means that there are many possible passes that I could have made that were never posted. And Licky says, you use mods, you have some in the chat. I have one mod in the chat, and I don't think he's in the chat right now. I have one mod in the chat, sometimes when he's there. Zip says, wonder when there will be Final Fantasy XIV ban speedruns. I think that would be terrible, because that would waste time that the GMs and such could use to help deal with genuine problems, right? Yeah, Flash Day actually recently, just the other day, he asked me, like, regarding the subscription of Final Fantasy XIV. So he has considered picking up the game again. Mia Wells, yes, the important distinction. Square Enix is against mods. Is against mods in plural, not mod in singular. And hey, welcome back, Fila. The long and the short of it, Fila, if you just want the summary for now, is use presence of mind more on trash packs. And then there was some things with planning your OGCD usage in trash packs. But for the most part, you did some impressive tricks, like your first pull in the fight, you used the latency swift cast weave, which I have never seen in person before. It was quite wild. So like, nice run, Figure. Gazel says, but Square Enix can use the money people spend on buying a new set of game to get more GMs. Well, they don't need to buy the game to do a get banned speedrun. They could do that with a trial account. But you could do that with a trial account. But I don't recommend doing a get banned speedrun. You don't know if they ban more than just your account at some point. I don't know if they, like, make sure you use a VPN, right? Just in case. Yeah, Fesh is a busy man. He usually reacts if you tag him, but don't tag him too much. He is a busy man. Yeah, I don't use mods. Part of the reason why I don't use mods is also because I want the game that I'm showing you to be the game you can play. And I don't need any mods to do anything special with that. Like, my game is perfectly playable with nothing. And this one goes out to all the console players. Some players don't have the options to use mods at all. So if I'm like, oh, I use this and this and this, and then my game looks different, you can just get it too. All the PlayStation players over there like, yeah, what about us? I think I forgot something. And I think that's important. This is also something we talked about recently, is that I don't know how many there are in the party finder right now, but let me just give a little gander. Maybe they've stopped with it. Nope, there's one. So, something that has become very popular recently has been the raidplan.io. And if you're on PC, you can just copy like that. And then you can just like paste it into a notepad, yoink out the URL, and you're good. You can go for it. If you're on a PlayStation, you actually have to like grab your PC, basically, because like I'm pretty sure you can't look at this and also write in a browser on your PlayStation at the same time. I don't have a PlayStation. One of these newfangled objects. But you would have to write this manually into your PC, and that's a pretty long URL with many opportunities to like write a typo. Licky says, can't Google Lens just open that link from your camera? What is Google Lens? What if you don't have that? What if you don't have a phone? Hypothetically. What if your phone is too outdated and old school to use Google Lens? If you have no phone, you can't. Exactly. Then you can't play Diablo Immortal, and thank God for that. Because if you didn't have a phone, then you wouldn't be able to afford getting very far in Diablo Immortal anyway. And Feeler says, that was so weird. I have Swift, but my character decided to hardcast Holy. I think you had a lag spike. So what happened is that the game had problems telling you, like your client, that you had Swiftcast, which allowed you to like sneak in Holy underneath. The thing is, if you could do that, like on good latency, there would actually be a very, very, very small gain to doing that, because normally you would have to like Swiftcast and then run up and then Holy. And then Holy again. But if you could precast Swiftcast and then hardcast Holy, you could, do the double Holy like that. There might be a very small benefit to it. I don't know there's very, very much, but it's very, very small. It's still better than nothing. But yeah, this is something we've talked about a little bit, is that there are many things in Final Fantasy XIV where it is very easy to forget that there are players that are not on PC. Something that we were talking about just the other day is that if you ever experienced, like, I don't know, you queue for Expert Roulette, right? You queue for Expert Roulette, you get into the dungeon, and you're sitting there in the circle of wait for everyone, just sure taking a while, maybe like 30 plus seconds, and you're just sitting there like, strange, like you're an Astrologian, like this is actually pretty nice. I managed to draw my card, and the cooldown is ready. I'm ready for my card burst. Might be nice in a raid. And then you get in, like you're finally ready to go. Either that slow player is on a like old PC, maybe a laptop, or there's a good chance that it's a PlayStation 4 player. Which is okay, right? Like, the key point here is that it's not the PlayStation that's the problem. It's that there are computers that are so incredibly OP now compared to what like mortals sometimes have, that not to suggest that you become immortal by having a really good PC, but like regular people might have to play Final Fantasy XIV a little bit on their one day off in the week. They might not have a super strong PC for that. Or they have a PlayStation. I'm immortal. Diablo Immortal. I'm immortal, no one has proven me wrong yet. I know, right? Yeah, just remember that there are console players. They exist, and more importantly, and this has nothing to do with the console players. This is unrelated to the console players. But just remember to remind yourself sometimes that you don't have to be perfect. When you get into that casual dungeon like that, if you like land into Expert Roulette and your Astrologian healer isn't really playing cards much, maybe they're like stressed out, spamming Benefic 2 for some reason, wasting time. Could you imagine the audacity to not attack? But no one died. The run took a few more minutes, maybe. But it's fine, right? Like, here's the thing. If you're doing expert roulette, and you're there like, this dungeon took 1 more minute than it needed to, so now I'm angry. That's probably because you are not having fun. And if you're not having fun doing expert roulette, maybe you should get your weekly tomestones elsewhere. There are many ways to get, there are at least a few ways to get weekly tomestones. You do not have to do the expert roulette. And you don't, like, most players don't need the weekly tomestones. And if you're not having fun playing the game, why are you playing? Like, if you are so focused on clearing quickly that anyone playing less than perfect makes you angry, then it's probably because you're feeling like you're trapped. You're forced to be here doing this thing that you don't enjoy. So don't do it. And just remember that. Remember, there are a lot of players that are average, even below average, and they're also allowed to be here. As I said a while back, it is okay to suck at Final Fantasy XIV. And Licky says, the most infuriating thing for me is when I ask Healer and Savage to not waste Benediction on my warrior, and they do it anyway. Oh, well, you should make sure to not mention for the White Mage that it's infuriating, because then they might actually think that it's a DPS gain for you. Oh, you get an extra inner chaos if I use Benediction on you. Noted. Perfect. But yeah, I can see that. If you don't need the healing, it's a little wasteful. But yeah, exactly. Zip says S ranks and hunts are quite good for weekly tomes. And there are other ways to get your weekly tomes. The point is that, 1, there are many ways to get your weekly tomes. You don't have to do something you don't like. And 2, many players don't need it. Now, you don't need the weekly tomes. Like, if you don't care that much about maximum gear, then why are you bothering? Gazel says, how does it work? What do you mean? The infuriating thing? Is that what you mean, Gazel? And Tristan Debat says, if you want an example, you could probably check the daily stream from the other day. I was on PlayStation 4. Well, there you go. The warrior thing. Oh, it's because infuriate is an ability. So if Licky says that it's very infuriating when the healer wastes Benediction on them, then I mean, might be a DPS gain to make the warrior angrier. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. There is nothing in it for real. Sorry that it wasn't that clear. I can also see why it would be problematic for you guys. What is the ability called in Japanese? I'm guessing that it would be something like infuriate in Japanese. But you never know for sure. And sometimes you get really surprised, like, it is war cry. Ah. Ah. I mean, I suppose it could be a war cry. Interesting. Well, Hoshi, what you can do is, like, you use your expert, like, if you don't enjoy expert roulette, that causes problems, of course, but if you want to both level the job and then also use roulettes for weekly tomestones, then you might, like, and then you either have to do other content than, like, roulettes to get your tomestones if you want to use your roulettes on leveling. But expert roulette is specifically one of those that are really good for that. And speaking of expert roulette, and this is probably one of the most infuriating parts of roulettes, is, so the expert roulette gives you 40 tomestones of comedy, cue laugh track, Just imagine that it was there. And Ether Font and Lapis Manalis gives 50 Tombstones of Comedy. So that's 90. The level 90 dungeons gives 15 Tombstones of Comedy. But the dungeons in that gives 30, 20, 20, 20, 20. Which means that at best, if you are lucky and you get Fell Court of Troya specifically, you get 45. 45 Tombstones of Comedy. But just doing Lapis Manalis or Ether Font themselves gives 50. So you have no reason to actually do... Like, if you're doing your roulettes for the weekly Tombstones, then you actually have no reason whatsoever to do the level 90 dungeons. Because they're objectively worse than Expert Roulette. Even without the daily. And case in point... The leveling roulette is also worse because it's only 20, trial is only 15, or if you're really lucky, it might be 23. What if you want the other tomes? That is a different story, because then Fell Court of Troya can give you 160. But the expert roulette gives 140 for the daily, and spamming gives 80. But yeah, if you want specifically the causality tombstones, then it would actually be better to do the level 90 dungeon. But if you want both, then I think it might actually be better to just spam expert. War crime, not war crime. At level 50, warrior learns war crime, which gives them 50 beast gauge. Hoshi says, my problem with Expert Roulette is that it's always 2 dungeons. After a while I can't see those 2 dungeons anymore. Indeed. Indeed. Oh boy. I hate getting Fell Court of Troya in level 90 dungeons, because I did Fell Court of Troya so many times in Expert Roulette. So I totally get that. I also regularly complain that there's only 2 dungeons in that roulette. It needs more. It needs more. Sip says, I've just realized your bowling pin analogy doesn't work anymore, since overpower attacks in a circle instead of a frontal cone attack now. I'm just saying, this animation does not look like a circle AoE. So it would not be the first time that a circle AoE, because it used to be a cone, just kept the cone animation. But you're right, Warrior used to have like a frontal cone on overpower, and now it's a circle. It also used to have more range. But it was more an example just for the ridiculousness of it. Like, Sip, if it was the bowling pin example that I said, that would only underline how impossible it would be for me to actually guess what action it was. That is also true, Gilano. It was less terrible when the patch cycle was 3 months. But I'm pretty sure in Stormblood we had several times where the expert roulette was more than 2 dungeons. I'm pretty sure. And Gazel says, my expert roulette only has 1 dungeon. It is always Isle of Ham. Apparently, my review options are also only Isle of Ham, as we could see today. Apparently, everyone is only getting Ether Font. And I think bowling alley animations are insane sometimes as well, so I get that one. But it's I don't really know what the solution is, because I'm pretty sure back in Stormblood, the way that they managed to fit sometimes an extra dungeon in the Expert Roulette was that optional side content had an extra dungeon. But if it was in the Expert Roulette, it was no longer optional, right? Like, I remember Swallow's Compass was in Expert Roulette at some point. And that one is an optional dungeon. And Hell's Lid was in it at one point, and that's also an optional dungeon. They're from the Four Lords series. So like that makes it really hard, right? Then suddenly it's not optional anymore, because you need it for Expert Roulette. I don't know. I don't know what is best, but I would very much appreciate if there was more than 2 dungeons in Expert Roulette. Like, I'm willing to say that they should have kept Fell Court of Troya in the roulette cycle, and when Aetherfont wasn't in yet, they should have kept Alzadal's Legacy, so that we had 3 dungeons. Even if most players were probably really tired of Alzadal's Legacy by the time Lapis Manalis came out. It would still change things up on the daily, which I think is a good thing. Like, it's not about the fact that you've gotten Alzadal's Legacy for 4 months. It's more the fact that now you're getting Lapis Manalis for 4 months, and Aetherfont. It's the similar problem to Alliance Raid Roulette, right? There's nothing wrong with the Crystal Tower being kinda boring. They could spice that up a bit. They could do something to make that more interesting. But the problem isn't the Crystal Tower. The problem is that you have a case of oh, we're having Crystal Tower again today. Like, if you were served cake, like delicious cake that you like, every day of your life, then at some point you would not want the cake anymore. That accounts for most people, I'm pretty sure, but you get my point. So, like, that is really the problem, and it is the same problem with Expert Roulette. The fact that you get the same dungeons all the time is the problem. It's not the dungeons themselves. It's that you're getting Aetherfont for the 30th day in a row. And Heike says that doesn't apply to me. I've eaten the same food for 3 years straight. I mean, I eat the similar things on a weekly basis, but there's a difference between having the same one thing every day forever and having like a few different things. No, Aria, as in, you know, a cake with sugar in it. Or not sugar in it, depending on the person. Anyway, I hope the reviews were helpful. And see, Janelle says, we used to have 2 new dungeons a patch until Shadowbringers, which was a bit better too. Now we have variant dungeons, but they're out of the roulettes. Yeah, and the variant dungeons are something that I feel like people typically like smash out, get it done, and then it's over, compared to like dailies. Yeah, I hope the reviews were helpful for Vila, Gazel, and Cheryl. I feel like genuinely, I think it worked pretty, like, you did all pretty well. Like, there were things that were, like, mistakes, but everyone makes mistakes. It's just which mistakes, like, I make a lot of mistakes in my videos. In both my on my streams, I should say. In my videos, I typically do this neat footage trick where I don't include the part where I make a mistake. I often also actively cut out parts where other players are making mistakes, so that everyone looks good in the video. But yeah, it is just a matter of what mistakes, and some mistakes are easier to see than others. And in all three cases, like, that is an interesting thing. Like, when I heard the there was a little bit of talk about it in text on Discord yesterday about Sharo, at least one, if not two, of Sharo's clips, and it sounded like it was way worse than it actually was, because it's really hard to convey these things in text, right? Kai also does this for streams. That's why I look like I'm doing an amazing job. Sib is a lot better at the game than he thinks he is. Aria is a lot better at the game than she thinks she is. Coco is a lot better at the game than she thinks she is. I'm pretty sure most people here are a lot better than they think they are, because here's the thing: if you are actively trying to improve, that actually means that you might be a lot better than you think you are. Nikki says, I'm worse than I think I am. Well, if you think you're the best and you can't learn anything, then you're probably worse than you think, because there's always space to learn more. Coco says, remember last Tuesday? Which one of them? And what happened? But yeah, everyone, typically, if you're actively seeking out help to improve, then you're probably pretty good at the game. Or you're at least going to be. Like, if you stop learning, then you're going to stop being able to keep up, right? Oh, and Tamtara. I mean, Coco, that was just, like, I was almost willing to believe it if you said that you did it because it was funny. Just because of the incredible comedic timing. Like me just saying, don't cleave, don't use your AoE attacks, wait. And it was like literally frames before it would have been okay. Like, it was so perfect that it could have been staged. So I loved it. I thought it was funny. And that's the thing, is that if we're having fun, then it's okay. Like, that is the same thing. If you're doing a dungeon and everyone's happy, even though you're going slow, then nothing's wrong. Leggy says, I have mastered everything there is to learn in the universe. In the entire universe. Well, I feel like you should write a book or something. Yeah, if you're having fun, that's what matters. If everyone's having fun, that's perfect. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if we're doing extreme on stream and we're losing, but we're happy and we're having fun, then I feel like we're winning, even though we're not beating the boss. That is what matters more, is having fun, not necessarily winning. How dare you have fun in a game? I'm not joking when I say that I have had too many discussions with people complaining about me suggesting something that is 0.1% less than optimal because the suggestion I made was easier to perform or teach in like an opener or rotation. Like, there are a lot of players that forget that it's a game that you're playing to have fun. Now, in around 15-16 minutes, the high-level part of my Astrologian guide is coming out. So I will be rounding up this stream. But yeah, in a little bit, we will have a high-level Astrologian guide, and I hope you will find it helpful. And then you will also see then you need to pay close attention. You might notice that I might like cut at very convenient times just before something goes wrong, or you notice that I'm actively choosing not to do something, or maybe it looks like it even though I'm actually forgetting to do it in the combat footage. Because sometimes I don't get the footage that I need, so I just have to settle for the best that I did get. Maybe that would be a fun game. See where I made mistakes in the footage that I choose to post. Licky says, if I have fun, learning goes much faster. That is absolutely true. And Cheryl says, I had some runs where we wiped 5 times in a dungeon, but that's because we talked more than concentrating on mechanics. See, exactly, that is awesome. And also, just before we finish here, I would like to say welcome to Cheryl into the Cult of the Pink, because that was a little sneaky membership join yesterday. So, welcome. And I think that's everything I have. In a little bit, high-level Astrologian guide. Tomorrow, we talk about what makes jobs easy in Final Fantasy XIV. And then, Saturday, we are doing... Small Kai's side quest, because we don't have any more MSQ to do. Licky, you can post clips if you want. I'm just saying, make sure to like cover up the mods for your own sake more so than mine. But I've said this before. There is a pin in the clip reviews channel room that tells you the details. Like, just click on the pins and there's like a whole large message that I left to explain. You can post a clip that you don't want me to review. You can just go like, watch this, I had this really cool run, or like, check out this opener, or I really think I did well here. Don't you want to see it? Like, just highlight the things that you want to show me, and I want to see it. Like, I want to see the stuff you make. And like, if you want to share it with me, I want to see it. It's just that I only have so much time, and if you put like a 20-minute clip, but what you really wanted to show me was a 1-minute clip, just, you know, highlight that part so that we focus on that, so we get more happiness and more fun out of watching the fun part, and things like that. So yeah, you can post things you want just for your own sake, with the mods, right? For your own sake. Yeah, you can do that too, guys. You can post AR clips. The important thing is just tell me what you want me to see, so I know what to look for. It makes it a lot easier for me to find it, and it gives me a better ability to focus on it. And hey, Irika, you have just barely caught the ending of the tea time stream. By the way, Irika, how's the MSQ going? I'll wait. We are not completely... I'll wait for your answer, Irika. Don't worry. Take your time. It's going. I'm in Elpis. Nice. And go for it, Hoshi. The whole point of sharing the clips is not for me to go, oh, you did bad. It's for me to say, you can do this and you'll do better. How about VR Final Fantasy XIV clips? Hey, if you can do it, you're welcome to do it. It might be difficult for you to play, and it might be difficult for me to give you advice. But you can send me things. As I said, it is allowed. It is allowed, as in yes, you can do it, to post clips of my streams if you want me to look at that. Like sometimes Orion or Ymir. Or others make clips of the stream and they post it in general, or meme chat or something. But if there's something you want us to like look at together on tea time, you can just put it in clip review and go, I want you to look at this. And remember, if I don't have any clips of anyone else to look at, or we want to look at that, I might just go like, oh, look, weird, I have a dungeon run by someone named Caetsu Chaiji. How strange, let's see how well they play. So, you can do that. I don't mind. Erika says, I took some extended breaks to avoid burnout. That is good. That is good that you make sure to enjoy the game instead of trying to rush through it. I'm glad to see you in the chat, Erika. Remember, there's so many friendly people you can also talk with about this story or anything else in the Discord chat if you like. And speaking of the Discord, if you enjoyed this stream or you liked the content on the channel, remember that there's a Discord community server that you can join that has a room specifically dedicated to the weekly schedule, and there is a room dedicated to whenever I post a stream or video or anything else, a short, so that you can get the reminders, and there is a specific role so that you get tagged if you want that. And like that is optional. You don't have to get tagged for everything. And if you liked the stream itself, I would really appreciate it if you left a like on the stream. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And as I said, tomorrow. Oh wow, there's a lot of stuff to prepare, huh? Tomorrow we have the weekly premiere of talking about what makes a job easy, and then Saturday we have a small kind of side quest. And I think that's everything that is aside from the video coming out in 10 minutes on high-level Astrologian. The Zeke says, I find the hunt trains fun to do to get quick tomestones. That is a good way to do it if you like hunt trains. Right. But that is everything I have, so thank you all so much for coming for tea time, and thank you for the awesome discussion. Really appreciate it, it's always fun. I don't have anything else left, so thank you so much for watching, and good night, or good morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye!